Hope that's okay. Thanks to all the people who got me here, and especially to Richie, who not only retrieved me from the airport this morning, I'm sorry, yesterday, but actually got me into this building. And I'm sorry for those of you who had to take the bus or walk, but pulled into the garage, not a drop on me. The Dalton Institute. What a fitting name for a courageous pioneer who fortunately is still among us. I just have one. There are a lot of John Dalton stories. Some have been told and others will be told, but I just want to say one of the many things that stands out in my mind. No, it's not what you think, John. In 1994, ACPA came out with something called the Student Learning Imperative. I wish Gwen was still here because she was part of this as well. And associations, ACPA, NASPA in particular, have had some good days and some not so good days as associations in terms of how they relate to one another. And there was at a moment in time when I think the student affairs field was looking for another way to connect directly to the academic educational mission of institutions. And so the SLI, Chick was part of that, Sandy was part of that, Charles Schroeder really brought us together. We thought was a timely statement. Now, this could have hung out there by itself with ACPA, but John Dalton did a very risky, I think, courageous thing, recognizing what the field needed. He was president-elect and was setting up the 1996 conference and made student learning the focus of that conference, and later spearheaded a writing team that resulted in a NASPA monograph, which all this is to say, for several years later, to get this more deeply rooted into the field of our practice and the thinking of people writing and leading the field, that was a very, most presidents, do what I did when I was president of ASH. I got an idea, let's do this, and we're all over the place. But John, I think, took us much further along this road than we would have been without him. So I really appreciate that, and the field appreciates it. The other thing I want to publicize, do you have these for sale here? This little monograph, now we would say it's dated, but it's still, I think, one of the best little pieces on assessing character outcomes in college. It was done for the New Directions, Josie Bass New Directions in Institutional Research. And if you haven't seen this, you should, because it has some, I think, very helpful historical perspectives, as well as some of the data that I think you're going to be hearing about from, well, certainly from me and perhaps from Sandy and Lena and so forth. So, wither character development. Now, how many of you really know what the definition of the word wither is? Tell the truth. I'm not sure I know, so let's not go to Q&A just yet. So I want to spend my time with you this morning drawing on what we know, and some of these things we foreshadowed last night across the panel discussion, and of course Chick talked about all of them, so I'm just going to emphasize them with visuals today, I think. Some of the data that we've gotten from Nessie and some of the things we've learned from employers, as we were talking a little bit about last night. And so as Gwen introduced us, reminded us, we're here in the choir, we're in the pews, and we know how to sing together. And so no matter what our role is in the academy, we're here because we have an abiding interest in trying to do the things that will, in fact, promote the highest levels of student learning, and then this thing we call character. I don't know if you read the same thing I do. It was almost as if the field was preparing for this weekend, John. In the last 2 weeks, there have been 4 or 5 pieces that have appeared in Inside Higher Ed and other places in the Chronicle. The back page of the Chronicle last week has got this, I think, very pithy piece reminding us that we're all responsible. And of course, one of the problems is when everybody's responsible for something, it often means that nobody does anything about it. And so it's a bit of a problem. But if you haven't seen this piece, I commend it to you. His point is that we have people in class, out of class, and as I think people were pointing out yesterday, Chick early and then in the panel last night, I think we now are seeing more people across different roles in the academy acknowledging the importance of the out-of-class experience and therefore what student affairs professionals and others, what others do. Now, of course, the key here is, yeah, there are a lot of us who are interested in this and who ought to be responsible for it, but building beam me up. building institutional structures, reward systems and so forth, easier said than done. So when I'm going to come back to what I'm using as a proxy definition for character a little bit later, but just in my mind's eye, it's what people believe and value in their own kind of organizing systems for how they see the world. It's how they think, how they ruminate, reflect on, how they draw judgments, and certainly it's about what they do. And I think this piece, going back to education and identity, this notion of integrity. Is our behavior consistent with what we say we believe and want out of life? So, a little bit more about what the world needs now, drawing on mostly the work from AAC&U, and then what we've learned mostly from NESI, but some other work, and I think you're going to hear more about that. I hope you hear more about that from Sandy and Lena later today. And then some of the work we've done recently on what we're calling high-impact practices. You'll see that this gets woven through almost everything we talk about. AAC&U, which was mentioned a number of times, and so I thought I would just flesh it out for those of you who haven't been following this work. About 10 years ago, they had this Greater Expectations project, and it was another clarion call for the role of liberal education and liberal arts education in terms of preparing people for what the world needed for them now. Personal success, a just democratic society. Lots of promises, they said, higher education has made and is expected to deliver on. The ability to think clearly, reflectively through complicated problems, the kinds of things that Chick was reminding us about yesterday. Then, of course, how to communicate and how to develop this capacity to continually reflect on who we are and what we're learning and so forth. And one more promise that they underscored, which of course is directly in the center of why we're here together, this coherent constellation of integrated values and ethical principles. All of these things AAC&U underscored about 10 years ago, and they have been moving further along this path with the College Learning for a New Global Century, which we mentioned a little bit yesterday. And I know a lot of you have seen this, but a lot of you haven't. And I think it's probably one of the single best treatments of what college graduates in this century need to know and be able to do. Many of our colleges are pretty well organized to help students prepare for the 20th century. Not so well organized in terms of in-class and out-of-class experiences for what this century demands of them. And then the four large areas of outcomes that people today, they claim, the study group claim need. And the first two, in fact, perhaps all four of these are quite obvious to you. But I want to underscore the last two because I think they are, again, pretty close to the sweet spot of why we're here together. Personal and social responsibility and what people are calling deep integrative learning. Personal and social responsibility, just to kind of get us all on the same page here. You know, all of the things we were hearing throughout yesterday and last night. I just want to point out this last phrase, humanitarian allocentric sensibilities. Doug Heath at Haverford who wrote that classic, I think 1969, but he talked about allocentrism as an important outcome of the college experience, meaning taking seriously, worrying and wanting betterment of the human condition, making the other an important part of one's life space. Is that what you were laughing about, the cancel? Okay, here I thought it was my sparkling personality and wit. All right, that may happen again, so just say, go to the screen. These ideas contributing to personal and social responsibility, and then this idea of deep